This is Data Citizens Dialogues, your guide to bringing trust to your data, decisions, and all things AI. For Calibra, I'm Thomas Brents. All right, it's that time again. A new episode of Data Citizens Dialogues is up and ready. My name is Thomas Brents, and I'm Calibra's head of marketing, and I hope you're excited to give us a listen. This episode was a lot of fun. I got to sit with Fedi at Data Citizens on the Road. Right before he went on stage and shared his story with our audience live, he and I got a little chance to sit in the lobby and do a bit of a pre-read for this podcast. Ready to give it a listen? Let's dive in.
My name is Federico Frumento, and I work at Vodafone Group in the UK, in London. I am a senior data governance manager there. I've been one for almost 6 years now. I'm originally from Argentina. I have sort of like a data background now for over 15 years. My journey with data governance and these topics in particular started back in Argentina. And since then, I've been sort of like evolving the career in that direction.
Awesome. Well, let's start there. The 15 years doing this. What drew you to data governance in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of came to me. Yeah, I think that like it happens to many of us that end up on this part of the data industry. Back then I was working at the HSBC Bank. I was hired there to create some assessment for financial risk for customers to try to evaluate how likely a customer was to produce financial risk. And eventually the HSBC organization implemented a global standard on data governance that they were applying on all the different operating companies. That cascaded to Argentina, and I was the lucky one to get it and to start implementing there. So that's how I learned, all the basics in terms of data ownership, quality, and so on. And then I had the opportunity to take that here to the UK.
That's awesome. Now, I know so often governance is seen in that, risk light or that kind of red tape. How do you shape it to not be seen like that? How do you shape it to be a competitive advantage or a necessity?
Yeah, I've seen that happen a lot, especially in the last few years with the popularity that GDPR gained. That whenever we talk about good data management, it sounds equal to compliance or regulatory alignment. And really, I take it always back to this, what I believe is the spirit of data governance, which is making data an enabler for business growth and business success. So it's always trying to remind people that we are doing data governance because we want our data to be better so that we can all work better and we can all achieve the commercial objectives of the company. Being compliant with regulations is a part of that, but it's definitely not the center. And that, I think, it's very important to constantly remind people to get them excited about the great things that they can do with good data.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned GDPR, and I think of that as one of those moments, those accelerators, right? Like BI was at one point, and then you have this next hump with GDPR, and now it feels like generative AI is sort of that. What do you think that kind of lives in the history of an escalator for governance?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see those, waves of data governance or, changes in the industry that led companies to believe that we need better data management. Like you were saying, BI, and when these amazing dashboarding tools appeared 20 years ago, with those colorful animated dashboards. Everyone got excited about the new things that they could do with data and found out that bad data quality underneath could never live up to the expectations. Therefore, they invested more in good data governance. And that kind of happened a few times over the last few years with the acceleration of cloud migrations, with big data analysis, with GDPR. And then now, in a way, it's happening, I see it with the gold rush that we are living on Gen AI and Gen AI development. And that's really what I like, that this new wave is bringing us again the opportunity to get people excited about cool things that you can do with good data and not only think about the bad things that can happen, like, regulatory impact or, fines or reputational damage. Those bad things that can also happen with bad data.
Absolutely. Now, we're obviously here at Data Citizens on the Road in London, and in just a few moments, both of us are going to roll out on that stage, right? You're going to talk about a few different things going on at Vodafone, but what are three of the big, business drivers or use cases that you're going to talk about about in your presentation.
Yeah, in the presentation, I start sort of like by outlining what, in my experience, have been the various approaches to making the business case for data governance. How do we try as data governance managers to convince our senior leadership into really putting effort and resources in making data management better? I think that many of us started through what I call the operational efficiency route, which is basically just trying to say, if we have better data, we can all just do a better job, and we can, raise the profits of the company just by having better data, which is true, but it's really, really hard and boring to explain.
Yep.
And best case scenario, it gets treated like an operational obstacle that needs to be sorted. So I think that in itself is not like a full, compelling story. The other approach, the other way of building a business case is what I call the stick approach, which is kind of going back to this, scaring people, explaining or making the case by saying that bad data gets you GDPR fines, gets you not being compliant with regulators or bad effects to your company, which is very quick to get people's attention, but also doesn't drive a cultural change in the organizations, because best case scenario, it gets treated like a sort of a risk management balancing act, where people are just trying to figure out how little data governance they can get away with doing, which will in turn reduce the chances of getting a GDPR fine. So it's sort of like this crazy calculation that is just about trying to dodge the bad things without really wanting to do the good things. And then the third approach is the carrot approach, and particularly right now with the gold rush that we are living in Gen AI, is that opportunity that we have to once again present data governance as the thing that needs to happen so that the Gen AI solutions perform as we expect them. It's much easier to sort of like draw a straight line between good data quality and a non-hallucinating Gen AI solution. Anyone can understand that. And the golden opportunity that we're sitting on is that we have gone through many years of learning all the bad things that can happen with poor data through GDPR. So now we have gone full circle. We can now finally use that knowledge of the bad things that can happen with data, plus the exciting things that can happen with Gen AI, to build a full-on business case that takes everything into account.
That's awesome. Let's talk about that. Actually, I like this carrot and stick, the good cop, bad cop kind of mentality. Let's talk a little bit about the stick approach for just a second, and how maybe you can use that to justify or gain investment for your governance efforts. Talk to me a little bit about how you've been able to use that internally.
I mean, what I have seen is that it becomes much easier for managers or senior directors to justify spending resources on good data management, as long as they consider good data management in the eyes of what our colleagues maybe in the privacy or data protection teams focus on, or our colleagues on the cybersecurity or information security teams are focusing on, which are good data management techniques. Things like sticking to the GDPR regulations or preventing data breaches. And us as data governance managers, and what we have been doing at Vodafone, is really trying to bring all of these people together to kind of add to that the business perspective. We need to understand that, yes, we have a lot of risks that come from doing bad data management. We have the risk of having a data breach. We have the risk of someone misusing data or manipulating data. And to protect us from those risks, we do a lot of controls. We do a lot of, we put a lot of red tape, as you were saying before. But there's also the risk of missing business opportunities because of having bad data, not understanding the market well enough, and losing profit because of that. And that also needs to be recognized as a risk that can be addressed by, appointing data owners, by completing a data catalog, by having a good data quality solution. And that is how we can position sort of like a well-rounded business case.
Well, let's take the other side of that equation. Let's take the carrot side. How can organizations kind of follow the same path as yours and sort of draw the parallel between good data management and the advantage, the innovation that can come from Gen AI in the moment that we're in now? How can they leverage that carrot side of it as well?
I think it's definitely about bringing all of these people together. Use the combined strength from all the people who are working to make data management better, whatever that may mean to them. because probably many companies are currently trying to do all of these things that need to be done, like protecting against GDPR regulators, protecting against hackers and attackers, and trying to enable data for business growth. Probably companies are trying to do all of these things at once, and more likely than not, the teams working on this are not really talking to each other enough. And more probably than not, all of these things cannot happen at once. So it's much easier to bring all of these teams together and give them a central focus, have them discuss what is really the most critical thing for the company to focus on, and have that combined strength approach, the solutions on making data management better and driving that cultural change across the organization.
Well, so much of what we do here on Data Citizens Dialogues is give advice to the listeners, right? You've been in this seat for 15 years. What's some advice that you can give to other data leaders to help them mitigate risk while balancing the need to not stifle innovation?
Yeah, I guess more than anything is remembering what are I guess the key elements that make a good data governance manager. The key traits that make a good data governance manager, which I kind of address as well in the presentation, and enabling data governance managers to become the champions or the ambassadors of this new AI world that we are approaching. Or that we are already on, to be honest. So it's thinking about how transforming the role of the data governance manager can sort of like bring it to a new height, leveraging this golden opportunity that we're on, that I was saying, that we have people both know the good and the bad about data. And with that, we can have that sort of like risk approach to managing data better, because the best data governance managers are basically trusted and knowledgeable coordinators. That's kind of the best way that I have managed to synthesize, what a good data governance manager is. And by coordinating the efforts of these various teams, by being trusted by the business teams that to know that what they are talking about, and to really manage these efforts together, I think that can really bring a transformation to what they are doing. So that's what I believe, kind of the key advice that I would give to my fellow data governance managers is to leverage this golden opportunity. Remember that people are looking up to them as the people that know the most about how to do good data management, and if they manage to build that trust with both the technical and the business teams, then they can finally make some, let's say, deep cultural changes happen in the organization for the future.
Well, let's build on that. You mentioned the traits,
yes.
Right? What are the traits that are most impactful for a data governance manager to be able to adopt AI? What are some of those really important traits?
Yeah, so I have a few that I present on the presentation. I would say one that is critical for me is flexibility. We have the luxury of being able to adapt and adopt our framework so that it fits whatever every business area needs. Unlike our colleagues that are following a regulation or a law that has a certain, rule that needs to be followed step by step, data governance can transform slightly, prioritizing, maybe focusing on data ownership first, or focusing on data quality first, or cataloging, so that it delivers value as fast as possible. So being flexible and not approaching potential data owners or data stewards with, a stone that says, these are the rules, these are your responsibilities as data owner, and you go and take it. But rather being flexible, understanding, hearing people's needs, and adapting the framework so that it works for them, I think is one of the most important things to really, gain people's trust, and then show yourself as a knowledgeable, supporter of their data management activities.
That's great. And it makes you a collaborator, right? Right? Collaboration is just so key to scaling this. What are some of the roles that you find that a data governance manager needs to build the best relationship with as a collaborator?
Well, definitely with a senior management from a data ownership perspective. Yeah, the absolute foundation of data governance is to have a strong data ownership framework in place to know who owns which data asset or data point. So that is absolutely key in terms of relationships. Yeah, to have a trusted relationship with the senior management that are data owners. And then similarly with the data steward community, with the people that are more the experts on certain business processes or systems or reports that really know what the data needs to be so that they can do their job. They need to really trust these people. Then I would say that is, having this network of stakeholders from the business side in terms of owners and stewards, and then from the second lines of defense, if we think about the three line of defense structure, and the second lines being the privacy teams, the cybersecurity teams, they really need to be friends with these people so that they can use their established governance mechanisms as well to create a better impact across the organization.
That's excellent. Well, let's end on another piece of advice for folks. We talked about AI being that kind of like escalation moment, and certainly taking what you know from data governance and then applying it to AI governance, right? Let's talk about that moment. What's the piece of advice that you could give to other data governance managers out there that are looking to apply their skills to AI governance?
Yeah. The key piece of advice from the presentation that I'm giving today is really to leverage this golden opportunity that we're sitting on to become AI champions in our companies. And that could mean, being an AI literacy champion or an AI adoption champion. It could have different names, gurus, leads, whatever our company uses in terms of terminology, but basically become a trusted partner to the business areas as someone that is going to, with the background knowledge that we have on good data management, that is going to deliver the trust in the AI solutions and deliver the mechanisms to enable the value from those AI solutions through good data management, and also gain the trust from the technical teams and the development teams that are building the AI solutions, that we data governance managers can be their ambassadors in driving this cultural change in the business areas. Because that, I think, is one of the most beautiful things about the data governance manager role, being able to sit in a table with someone that is entirely business minded, like someone from a marketing team, and someone that is entirely technically minded from a technology development team, and help them understand each other, mediate between the two of them. My main advice is to really leverage this opportunity and become a trusted AI champion for the company.
Organization, that's tremendous. And this has been great. Fedi, thank you so much for giving so much advice to our leaders, helping them follow your path, pick up some of the work that you've done at Vodafone, and congratulations on just a really great, tremendous career there at Vodafone. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I loved that. Fedi has been a long-time advocate for Calibra, and I love that he's always excited to share their progress at Vodafone. So innovative, so creative. Now, let's dive in to the big three things that I learned in this episode. And first, as you all know, data governance is a business enabler, not just red tape. Don't let governance be viewed solely as compliance or risk management. Fedi emphasizes its real spirit, making data an enabler for business growth and success. Being compliant is just part of it, but the main goal is better data for achieving commercial objectives. Second, and I love this, use the carrot of Gen AI to drive governance investment. The current surge in generative AI offers a golden opportunity to make the business case for governance. It's now much easier to show a straight line between good data quality and preventing a Gen AI solution from hallucinating. This excitement helps shift the focus from dodging bad things to wanting to do good things. And last, but certainly not least, the best data governance managers are flexible, trusted collaborators. To succeed, managers need to be flexible, adapting their framework to fit to each other's business needs. They act as trusted and knowledgeable coordinators who mediate between business teams and technical security teams, leveraging their combined strength to drive real cultural change. Team, if you haven't before, I hope you'll join our team at our next Data Citizens on the Road event. Likewise, I hope you continue to listen and support our podcast here. Now, for Calibra, this is Data Citizens Dialogues, and I'm Thomas Brents. Thanks for listening. Want even more insight into managing your data? Visit Calibra.com/podcast for additional resources on the topics covered in our show. Be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Enjoy what we have to share? How about a 5-star review? At Calibra, we absolutely appreciate your support. Data Citizens Dialogues is a production of Calibra in collaboration with Stories Bureau.